Now, a word from Ford.
This is the 2017 Ford F-150 4x4 Super Crew Platinum Edition. And to make sure everybody knows you're driving the Platinum, Ford put lots of emblems on the vehicle, so everybody will see what you're driving, like here. And a super big one on the tailgate, like so. Shipped all the way from Michigan just for me and you. This is one of many Ford trucks I've driven this year. Here's the Ford Raptor we did a video on 4 weeks ago. Here's the Ford F-250 diesel we did several months ago. The F-150 double cab with the 5.0 V8. And the F-150 with the 2.7 liter EcoBoost. By the way, red paint seems to be a popular item in the Ford press fleets. I'm not complaining, it looks pretty good. We'll have a link for those videos coming up later on. Anytime I look at the price of these Ford trucks they send me, I get a case of sticker shock when I see the tab. So let's take a closer look so that you know what we're driving here. Here's a list of the standard equipment you get on the Platinum model. Here's a list of the options we had. And here's the bottom line. Or we can save time and cut to the chase. There you go. As usual, one of the first things we do when we get a vehicle is take the headlights out in the dark and see how they perform, so we're going to do that right now. It's dark enough, so let's try these headlights out, see what happens. Here we have the low beams set on a wall 100 feet away, with an adequate light, as I would expect. We're high off the ground. Let's do the high beams. Very bright. Certainly no complaints here. Here we have the brights on the building 300 feet away. Plenty of light. No issues. Low beams. Still reaches out. These are very nice headlights. Nothing to gripe about here. And on these dingy roads with no street lights, you can see everything lights up quite well. A smooth ride over the railroad track bumps. We get 4 engine choices in the Ford F-150. First off, a 3.5 V6 putting out 282 horsepower, 253 foot-pounds of torque, averaging 20 miles per gallon overall. Second choice is a 2.7 EcoBoost putting out 325 horsepower, a very healthy 375 foot-pounds of torque, rated at 22 mpg overall. 30% of the F-150 buyers will choose the common 5.0 V8 putting out 385 horsepower, a 387 foot-pounds of torque, overall 18 miles per gallon. All 3 engines I just mentioned come with a 6-speed automatic, by the way. The top dog we see here, a 3.5 EcoBoost putting out 375 horsepower. About the same as the V8, but a whopping 470 pounds-feet of torque. That's some real pulling ability there. And the official MPG rating is 19 or 20 overall, depending on what spec sheet you read. With the 3.5 EcoBoost, instead of the 6-speed automatic, you get the new 10-speed automatic. Do we really need all those gears? Probably not, but that's what we're getting here. You can impress all your buddies. And with the driveline, we have a knob here for 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive automatic for the street, 4-wheel drive high for off-road, and 4-wheel drive for definitely off-road. The new Ford Raptor has a modified version of this drivetrain, putting out 450 horsepower and a torque rating of 510. We did a separate video on that, so you can watch that after we're done with this vehicle test. There's no point in watching an F-150 test unless the people doing the video are going to give you the real-world fuel economy, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing here. We're going to put around 500 to 600 miles on this vehicle. City, freeway, etc. So, stay tuned. So let's take a quick look at the cabin. We got a very nice gauge cluster with lots of useful information. Just by punching a button on the steering wheel. Climate controls, very easy to use. Not the biggest navigation screen I've ever used, but it's adequate enough. A couple of useful power outlets. A glove box size that's adequate, but way too small for a vehicle this big in my opinion. But not a big deal. Especially since we have this giant console between the seats. If you watch my videos, there's one thing I do not want to see on a pickup truck, and that is running boards like this, sissy boards. Now there are exceptions, I suppose, if the driver's extremely short and can't reach in the vehicle, okay. If it's a two-wheel drive truck, maybe I'll cut you some slack. On a 4x4, never. On a 4x4, you're going off-road, these things get banged on rocks. A bad, bad deal. Except in this case, because these are the power-operated running boards. You get in the truck, close the door, and they go out of the way. Now that is the way to do it. A very nice feature, but unfortunately a very expensive one too. But hey, it's a Platinum, remember? And with the Platinum, you don't want to strain yourself lowering the tailgate, so hit the magic button. There you go. The wonders of modern convenience. And oh, looky here. Steps. I forgot how to do this. We'll mess with this later. Never mind, we got it. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, it's pretty common knowledge that Ford has switched to aluminum bodies over steel. And there have been rumors that, yeah, it's okay for lightweight, but if you dump a bunch of stuff in the bed, you're going to damage it. Well, yeah, if you're dumb enough to get the truck without a bed liner, but you should get a bed liner on any truck anyway, duh. I've been tossing all kinds of stuff in the bed of this rig all week. Hasn't did it yet. Unless you're dropping 2-ton boulders from a roof, don't worry about this getting dented. The aluminum body is just fine with a bed liner. End of the story. And since the aluminum body saves around 500 to 700 pounds in weight, it improves performance and fuel economy. So why complain? It pays in the long run. I've been testing vehicles for many years, and there's one feature I've never used until this month, and that's the remote start system. You know, where you press the button on the fob and start the car while you're in the house shaving or doing whatever you're doing. But it's 110 to 120 degrees out this month, so let's give it a shot. There we go. Air conditioning running. By the time we get in, it'll be nice and cool in there. I think it works with the heater mode too. For those of you who live in Alaska. So enough with the features. Let's take this on the road and do some driving. One of the biggest complaints I hear about these EcoBoost engines is they don't have the rip-roaring sound of a nice V8. Well, in some cases yes, some cases no. I just finished driving the Ford Raptor with a 3.5 EcoBoost modified engine and exhaust, and it didn't sound very good. It sounded like wheezing through a drain pipe. This one sounds a lot better. I don't know why. Different horsepower, different exhaust. I don't have a problem with the way it sounds. In fact, it sounds quite a bit like a V8, at least under the hood, so let's give it a shot. Fast enough. Sounds pretty good to me. Very nice firm brakes. Great feel too. I suspect the power steering on this rig is electric. It's way too light and has no feel, but it's not a sports car, it's a truck. so I'm not going to complain too much. If you watch my videos, you know every vehicle I get, we do a ride quality test on speed bumps. Now on a pickup truck, in a way it's kind of pointless because you have all these different suspension packages, wheel and tire options, 4x4, 2x4. You can get 15 different Ford F-150s and get 15 different results. But we're here. Let's just do it anyway and see what happens. We'll be doing 25 to 30 miles per hour. Speed bump number 1 coming up. Very smooth. Here comes another one. Didn't feel a thing. Another one. Then the big nasty one at 30 miles per hour. Yeah, I felt that one a little bit. But it's a pretty strong body. No rattles, no problems. From this point on, we're going to be doing a lot of driving, city driving, highway driving, off-road driving, and get some fuel economy figures for you. So let's do it. Wow, this engine does have pull. Far better than any V8 in the Ford line. Yeah. So far, our fuel economy in heavy city traffic has been 12.9. We're going to do a freeway trip and see if we can bump this figure up a bit. So we've reset the computer and we'll be on our way. On our first highway trip, we'll be climbing from 1,000 feet elevation to around 4,500 feet elevation. So naturally, our fuel economy will be slightly below average, but then again, there's always the return trip. This truck is an excellent highway cruiser, very smooth, quiet, and comfortable. High riding position, good view. A nice rig for long trips. This EcoBoost engine is far better at climbing hills than the V8 because of the higher torque output. So it should be interesting to see what our fuel economy ends up being. I suspect not much better, but we'll see. With 10 gears in this transmission, we have a lot of overdrive capability. So I would expect the highway RPMs to be rather low, but not necessarily. We're cruising at 75 miles per hour, pulling around 1800 RPM, which should be about the norm for any other truck with a 6-speed automatic. The type of rear axle you order makes a big difference. I'll have to check and see what we're running here. Okay, the results of our first highway trip. Once again, climbing from 1,000 feet to 4,500 feet and doing a bit of passing. 17.1. Stay tuned for the down trip. We'll add up both mileages and divide by 2 and get our actual MPG. But first, we're going to do a bit of off-roading. Get this a little dirty. For those interested, we have a cool feature. Press the button, you got your off-road status, giving you all the angles on the road you're driving. I think I'm spoiled from having driven that Ford Raptor I had a few weeks ago. On a road like this, I could take it at 50, 60 miles per hour, not feel a bump. Here I'm doing around 30, being bounced around. Oh well. I'll just have to take it a little bit slower. There's nothing worse than going four-wheeling and having a branch knock one of your mirrors off. Especially these power mirrors. I hear they're a couple grand to replace. So we have the magical power folding button. Comes in handy. If you're driving off-road where there are large rocks, you will want to disconnect those electric running boards. Otherwise, you might have a nice big collision that could end up being expensive. Fortunately, these rocks aren't big enough to make contact with the running boards, but the ones down the road certainly are, so we'll have to disconnect the system before we continue on. Hey, looks like the poachers have been out. I I don't even know what this is. I didn't know they had sheep out here. Oh well. Maybe I should load it up in the truck. Might make a fur coat. This is what having a nice 4x4 truck is all about. Getting out of the city, finding a nice spot, sitting back and relaxing. Looks like we're going to have to cut our off-roading short. We have a nasty storm blowing in with high winds and lots of rain, and you do not want to get caught out here when the ground gets wet, or you will sink in the mud and never get home. This front air dam is there to increase fuel economy on the street. On the other hand, for off-roading, it's kind of a pain because it likes banging on rocks and other debris. And I think I'm going to have to get a wrench out and see how hard it is to take it off. Will make going in the dirt a lot easier. I'm in the mood for a nice steak. Why don't you come over here and get in the bed of my truck? God, these are ugly cows. Hey, knock that off. We got children watching this channel. This is why a real truck needs four-wheel drive. I'm slipping and sliding all over the place. But spinning in some mud holes. If you're going to take it off-road, you got to have four-wheel drive, folks. Fork up the extra $2,000. Don't be cheap. Okay, time for the return highway trip. Resetting everything to 0. Let's do it. Okay, our highway trip going uphill was 17.1, downhill is 21.2. That averages out to 19.1 mpg. Combine that with the 13 mpg we got in heavy city driving. That would average out to 16 miles per gallon overall. By comparison, the 5-liter V8 we drove recently was 16.5 mpg average, and the 2.7-liter EcoBoost was 17.5 mpg average. So those are the figures. Take it for what it's worth. We must have the extra large fuel tank. I've racked up almost 280 miles, and the computer says I have 300 miles left. That's almost 600 miles to a tank. That's impressive, but I'm starting to worry how much it's going to cost to refill this. Better get my gasoline credit cards out. Just for the record, I did an additional 1 day of driving, 110 miles, 65% city, the rest an expressway. And here we see what I got, 15.4 mpg. Outside temperature was running around 100 to 115 degrees. So there you go. So here's my take on the Ford F-150. It's definitely a nice truck. In this case, a very expensive truck, but like I said earlier in the video, you can get them a lot cheaper. The well-equipped one for around 35 to 45 grand. The only big decision you'll have to make is figuring out whether you want the V8 engine for top-of-the-line performance or this 3.5 EcoBoost. As far as fuel economy, I've driven every EcoBoost engine in the Ford inventory, and yes, usually in normal driving they might do slightly better in fuel economy than the non-EcoBoost. At most you're looking around 1 mpg or 2 mpg more. In this case, the fuel economy of this EcoBoost was about the same as the V8 at 16 mpg, but it was pretty hot out here when we were doing our testing. Definitely over 110 degrees, so that might have been a factor. Overall, if you're buying an EcoBoost for improved fuel economy, I'd say forget it. The main advantage of the EcoBoost is more power, and this definitely delivers far more than the V8. No doubt about that. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I could live with the V8. We'll probably get that, but hey, if you're towing a lot of stuff, the EcoBoost is probably a better choice. We have some links coming up for the other Ford trucks I've driven this year, so we'll pull them up. Just click and watch.